So please try to minimize any other distractions from your virtual space today, and tune into those two important pieces, the Zoom window and the agenda that my co-presenter is going to help and put in the chat today. Rebecca Odyssey is helping me to co-facilitate today since we do have such a big group. So she'll also be fielding in the chat for any questions that you may have along the way. I have some other team members who might chime in and do some of the same. All right, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you can, please go ahead and click on the agenda. In just a moment, I'm going to share my screen. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, that might overboard your viewing screen. So remember, you can always press escape to get out of the screen that I'm sharing, but please try to stay within those two screens, the Zoom window and the agenda that I'm going to share. Can I see a thumbs up? If you're able to see that agenda, you're with me? Awesome.
No, I don't see it. I
don't see it either.
You don't see the agenda yet. I haven't presented it. There is a link for it in the chat. Great. I just wanted to see your faces. Once I click share my screen, I won't be able to see your smiling faces.
All right.
All right. So now you see my screen.
Yep.
All right, so this is our shared agenda space. This is really one of my favorite tools for engaging learners and to help this kind of virtual space that we're sharing together. So you'll see it's a one-stop shop for us. We have the topics and discussions that we'll cover. I want to encourage you to refrain from clicking any links ahead of time. Stay on pace with me. I promise we'll have plenty of time to explore and you won't lose access to this document. You can save it in your own files and return to it as you'd like. All right, so you can see our organization today. We're going to cover many topics. We're going to talk about engagement before a virtual session, engagement during, and then engagement after your session has concluded, with a special nod towards the ever important closure at the end of the process. So those are the topics we will be covering. So let's go ahead and dive in and we'll take a look at engagement before. The first item on the list is considering your virtual space. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment and come back to you and just take a look and notice about my virtual space. The goal is to think about everything that can be seen and heard in your virtual space. Anything that doesn't add to your virtual session needs to be removed from your virtual session. So this is probably a no-brainer, one of the easiest tips to cover, but it doesn't hurt to put it out there. So anything that visually can detract learners, especially the young ones, such as dangly earrings or a dog in the background, or anything that you might be hearing, such as a dog in the background or clanking jewelry, anything that doesn't add to it should be removed. Wearing a calm clothing color and things that are simple are really important to not take away from any engagement that you might be trying to establish. So that's first things first, having a nice engaging atmosphere. Let's go back to the agenda. The next thing on the list is the actual agenda. This is the form that I prefer to use every time. Feel free to copy my design if you like this. This is the way I do it. But the important thing is to make something that works for you. I like to pace myself with time. On the left-hand side, list out the topics and then pose discussions so everyone knows what to expect on the right-hand side of the discussions. You'll see in a moment a few other techniques that I use in the agenda, but the thing to remember is that it should be a one-stop shop for all of the things about your session. It's important that participants can refer back to a note space, and the agenda seems to be a nice area for that, so the resources don't disappear after the session has closed. So the next thing on the list is testing equipment and resources. And I've gotten the opportunity to do this more and more lately since we have turned into such a virtual environment. So creating a buddy system with a colleague or a partner or even a family member that can help you test out all of your resources. This can really eliminate a lot of the woes of using technology when you test your equipment and your links and your resources first. Especially the biggest hitter is a video or audio. So let's try that out first. I have tested this with my colleagues, so we're hoping everything works fine and dandy. So give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio okay and see the screen. Awesome. We're gonna take a look at this quick 2-minute video and then we'll talk about it in just a moment. All right. Okay, so the technology worked that time. That's awesome when it does work, but testing it ahead of time certainly will help. So I want to pose a question real quickly before we move forward. How does this video relate to your current situation with technology? So at this time, I'm going to also model one of my favorite in-classroom techniques that I've also found is useful online, and it's called Think and Share 10-30. 10-30 refers to the amount of time. So we're going to do a 10-second think and a 30-second share to help keep us on pace. That helps limit extra long responses, but let's have a 10-second think towards how does this video relate to your current situation with technology, and then I'd love to have a volunteer that's brave enough to share out in 30 seconds or less the answer. So 10 seconds of silent thinking. All right, so if you'd like to volunteer to share your answer, make sure you unmute yourself so we can all hear.
So in response to your question, I think that I'm the gentleman that's standing on the bridge and everything's getting thrown at me. So I kind of feel I'm getting overwhelmed, and there's just a lot of different new technologies coming in and a lot of people supporting each other, but we're all sharing different thoughts.
Absolutely. Great analogy. Thank you so much for sharing, Suzanne. Who else would like to share 30-second connection to the video, how it makes you feel about your own technology situation right now?
So I agree, it is overwhelming. So just what Suzanne said, I second that.
Like the big zombie hand that comes out of the ground, we feel like that a little bit,
Exactly.
right?
Or
Thank you.
falling into the abyss, and then you find those butterflies and flowers to help you get out of it.
Good. There was a happy ending, at least, right? We're still waiting for it. Thank you. These are great ideas. I would love to have maybe one or two more people share their connection.
I feel like as admin, maybe being the girl pushing all of the buttons trying to save the teachers, but not necessarily knowing if we're pushing the right buttons.
Great connection. That's a new insight I hadn't heard. She did struggle to find the right button. Thank you for that. One more brilliant idea. Anyone?
Hi, I'm just testing this out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, just testing the audio. That's good. We're your buddy system.
And it's my first group video conference, so just testing it. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome, Denise. Glad to have you.
Hi,
Anyone else want to respond?
Sure. I feel like sometimes it's not only us, the teachers, that feel really overwhelmed, but also our students are going through such a new experience with this. I teach elementary school, so I feel like they also feel like a lot of things are being thrown at them, as do their families, because this is just new for everyone. So I think we all are on the same page, but kids do have that resilience where they will find more fun in pushing the buttons and kind of exploring things, where we as adults kind of stress things out a little bit more because, you know, we are thinking about the bigger picture and they're just kind of like, whatever kind of happens, you know, they're easily just better at adapting to change.
That's true. Good. And thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. That's a nice response to end this share time on. The idea that the students can help lead us through this. They are these natural technological beings that we were not born into that age. So it's not as natural for us. But I do feel like from coast to coast, the teachers that I get to visit with, they're becoming more and more astounded at how adaptable our students are and how they seem to be able to more easily figure things out through this process. So be sure to rely on a buddy that might be a student and get that input and support from your students, as well as we're trying to solve these technological woes and learn how to use it together. So thank you for that. I'm so glad that the video worked. That was all in the name of let's test our resources. So let me loop back around to that. The idea, if you want to use a video or audio, be sure to test that in advance, because me telling that story would not have been as great as y'all seeing it on the big screen. So thank you for the sharing as well and connecting to that. All right, so let's get back to the agenda. The final piece to cover in engagement before a session would be setting some norms. And you've already noticed that we started that way today. I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom of the agenda, so pardon the scrolling. That can make some people dizzy. But I've jotted some notes for us to share so we kind of have a visual to stay adhered to. So let's talk about a few ideas for norms. So when you're considering the needs of your session ahead of time, that's a great time to determine which norms are going to support your work. For example, it was really helpful for me to establish a co-facilitator, so she can drop those links for you guys in the chat and help field questions since it's such a big group. That might not always be necessary, but what might be helpful is meeting roles. We do that in the classroom. Why not try it in the virtual sense as well? Sometimes having a student to help take attendance or field questions or copy and drop pieces into a document, whether it's text or what have you. Having meeting roles adds that layer of engagement and also can support the success of your meeting. How to ask questions is one of the top #1 norms. We covered that to get started, and it's in the chat, but there are many ways that questions can be asked. Zoom also offers the hand raise tool, so that's another fun way. How materials are shared is probably such a big issue. I'm hearing from teachers and parents across the nation right now, so this is probably one of the most important norms to cover and to get right, is having it easy to access and always in the same location. Well organized and predictable. Everything is sort of like this agenda today is a one-stop shop. Everything you need is here and it's easy to access. So material sharing is really important and critical at this time. Protocols that you put into place would be things to think about. For example, we're using the chat for questions. That's a protocol that we're using for this meeting. But with your students that you're seeing over and over again, these protocols the list of protocols might become longer and more intense. Expectations is the final norm. Just like we do in our classroom, it's really important to set these expectations explicitly with our young learners, such as starting and ending on time. But essentially what to do when. I had a teacher, I'll share a quick story. A teacher that I met with this morning shared the need for expectations. So I'll share her story in case it helps anyone else out there. She was in a meeting yesterday with her students and she kept losing internet. So she was bumped out of the meeting, but her students were still on the meeting and it was a little bit chaotic. So this morning when she met with her students, she set an expectation in place and said, if this happens again, here's what you do. And so sure enough, she was bumped out of the meeting again. She's working on her internet connection. And the students went right to the place where she told them to go as an expectation, and no time was lost for learning. So thinking ahead to what might happen in your session is really an important way for you to determine which norms are important. But remember, this is a learning curve for us all. And there is no limit to how many norms we add or when we add them, but it's certainly a good consideration before your meeting so that you can tie up as much engagement as possible. All right, so let's pause for another conversation real quickly. I have a question here in the chat or in the sidebar, and Rebecca's going to put it in the chat for you. So I'd love to hear what you think. Which norm do you feel is most important for your engagement and why? You can refer back to the list that I've given. Or what additional idea do you have for a norm? Maybe like my teacher friend this morning, maybe you've had an experience and have discovered an important norm. So please drop your answer in the chat. If you'd like to answer both, please feel free. I'm going to stop sharing so I can check out the chat and how it's rolling. So please just take a moment to reflect on those questions and drop your idea in the chat. We have them starting to populate, so expectations is important, materials, that is important, having everything ready and pulled up on your screen. Oh, a timekeeper. I always wish for one of those. Roles assigned, building a routine. Co-facilitator would be fun. Oh, and the co-teacher opportunity, that's really awesome if you have a co-teacher. So to work that out together would be awesome. Clear expectations, isn't it? That's really the route to success. And they need it now more than ever. Awesome. Taking turns. Participating, starting on time, actively listening. Right? Isn't that the truth? We want our students to learn that you really take out whatever you put in. So being engaged is really an important lesson for them to learn. One teacher teaches, one monitors the chat. That's a good idea. All right. Thank you for logging in all of your responses. I learned from teachers that I have the opportunity to meet with every single time. And please know that the chat will be recorded and I will be using it. So you'll not only aid in my growth and development, but you'll be helping teachers across the nation. So thank you for your participation here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move us forward. If you have additional ideas for that question, please continue to fill up that chat. That's awesome. So I'm going to go back to my screen again. I love to use an agenda. It really helps me to stay on target. And I find over time it also helps participants. All right, so we've really covered a lot of information just in this first block, but we're just getting the ball rolling. Engagement during your session is really where engagement kicks into high gear. So before we talk about this lovely list of ideas, I want us to consider for just a moment this question over to the right. How do our in-person engagement tools compare to our virtual engagement tools? We don't want to, throw the baby out with the wash, so to speak. We have a lot of great engagement strategies that we're used to using in person. We don't want to throw them all away just because we're in the virtual arena. It's nice to give our students that connection of, hey, this is just like regular class. But also they can be twisted and molded and fit into our virtual world just as well. Some examples that teachers have commented to me that they're using is sound cues for the younger students in particular. Having a little bell or a sound on your phone that you can use to cue certain pieces is a fun tool. Also using rewards where students that respond the fastest or log on first or what have you can get whatever ticket or whatever reward system that can be used in the future for whatever rewards are natural for you. So those are two that I know teachers have been using. But I'll go ahead and hit on the negative news or the bad news is that in our virtual world, the one engagement technique that we lose is the idea of proximity. We no longer can be right there to help those students stay on task or to peek into what they're actually doing are they doodling or are they surfing the web or are they texting their friends. We don't have that luxury anymore. So that's why engagement is so important in your toolbox, because the more you rein in their engagement, the less they're going to need or that you would need to apply that proximity idea. So thank you for plugging in to this very important piece of engagement during your session. Please don't think that this is a list of things that you have to do all of these at once. We're encouraging you just to see what resonates with you and what fits into your own personal situation. So maybe consider one takeaway that really applies to you that you can bridge forward. That is our goal and hope for you guys, is that you will certainly come away with something positive that you can apply to your students. So don't think you need to do it all. Just think which one piece fits with my students. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our engagement during. And the first is participant involvement. That's a no-brainer, right? I like to set the amount of time for participant involvement according to their age. So just like in the classroom, the younger they are, the shorter amount of time between one involvement situation and the next. The older and more mature, the bigger that number of minutes can be. So my goal tends to be about 10 minutes, but that would obviously reduce if the participants were younger. So remember that discussion can be verbal or written. You never want to do like the same all the time. So we've had some verbal and written so far. It's important to change that up. The chat feature in Zoom is phenomenal. It's really exciting. If you guys are using Zoom, I just want to point towards the idea of becoming familiar with the Zoom settings that are available, as you can really increase the capacity there with the chat feature. But one piece that you may or may not have used in your general classroom, in your in-person classroom, that is so helpful in our virtual classrooms is a poll. So we have one here. This is a hot link, but Rebecca is also going to drop it in the chat for you guys. So you can click either here on the screen or in the chat to take the poll. I'll click on my screen so you can see what you should be able to look at. It should look like this. Let's take a poll. Polls are fantastic resources for engaging your participants because they get to share their ideas. But it's also, the double whammy is that you get to have powerful insight into whatever it is that you're asking about. So this, for example, is really great intel for me. So take a quick moment to answer the 2 questions, and then we'll look at the results as they populate. And as you guys are working to respond, I'll just mention a few of the insights that I've had from other teachers. One of the most powerful uses of a poll right now would be teachers at one of the schools I get to work with, PS 182, they're using it as one of those protocols or norms to start every meeting, where they're gathering the intel on how the student's life is at the moment, how they're feeling emotionally, because the students in the general classroom, they are bringing their home life with them, right? But in the virtual classroom, they are in that home life. And so we're kind of going to them. So it's important to gather the intel on how our students are feeling, what their emotional state is at the moment. So that's one way we could use a poll. So let's go ahead and jump into the responses. It looks like quite a few of you have inserted your ideas. Looks like 44. So this is great information for me. So it looks like we have support role, a lot of support. We've got the younger grade teachers is really populated. So we look like a lot of elementary folks here right now, not so many of the upper grades or administrators. So that's really great information for me to know my audience. So the second piece is which opportunity below has the most impact on your own engagement. So this is an important thing to notice for 2 reasons. One is to think about what you find impactful, but also to take a look and see how you compare to others, because our students need this varied way to gather their engagement in order to gather their engagement. So we have a lot of folks here in the green and orange, which is varied activities and visuals. That is a very popular response across the board. The next highest would be verbal participation. That's actually pretty high. I don't get many people that say that. Having a responsibility, usually adults don't really want to plug in there, but a lot of students do. And then the red, written participation, that is oftentimes the same with our students as well. So it looks like lots of varied activities and visuals would be the way to go for you all. So lucky me, that's what I prepared. So that's fun. So we'll go ahead and move out of this poll. And what I'd love to just lace back around with the idea that polls could be used throughout your session. You could begin there, you could use it in instruction, and you could use it to close at the end to gather some feedback. You could also use it, obviously, Google Google Forms is so easy to also pose, some questions so you can check for understanding. So using a poll is an easy way to gather that intel, but then also bring the whole group back together by sharing the results instantly. So polls are fantastic. I love them. The next piece here is virtual note catching. Virtual note catching is super fun. I know that we've probably used this a lot in our classrooms, but it's a great tool to use either during or to support before or after your session. Padlet, Trello, and Poplet are 3 that are really common and popular right now. Padlet's the one that I like to use personally. I just find it really bright and cheerful and easy to use, but it also can be used for more than just virtual note catching. So we'll go ahead and participate there as well. I will be asking you guys to write, but it's really important. I'm going to layer over some extra info that I'm stuffing in this activity as well. So go ahead and either click on the link. Rebecca's going to be dropping it in the chat for us. So grateful for her for doing that. And I'm going to show you what it looks like on the screen.
And I'll just clarify, so the links that I drop in the chat, and Angie had pointed out the chat on the right side of the screen, so the links that I drop in there, just decided to say drinks instead and combine those words, not yet the end of the week. So the links that I drop in there, you'll be able to just click directly on those and you should see exactly what Angie's seeing now. And if there are any problems that come up, go ahead and throw it in the chat and I'll be able to respond to you.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. All right, so what you're seeing on the screen here is Padlet, and this is the one that I like to use the most. What you see across the top would be my headers that I've created, and then your responses can fall in by clicking on a plus note, and the plus note is essentially a virtual sticky note. So you can click on that and enter in your idea. What you notice when you click on a plus note is it allows you to use a title if you'd like, and then to write. You don't have to use a title, but you can. An idea that some teachers have used just to simplify things, that the student could write their name if you want to record who's participating in the title, and then they could enter their response. Another cool feature here is that you can offer a rating of the response, so that would be another way to interact, as well as the opportunity to comment. You can take away those tools. It's really super easy to manipulate, but I want to show you an extra layer of engagement here that I've included in this activity. Please feel free to answer these questions because I love to have feedback on these ideas. But another layer of engagement is differentiation. We know that when we differentiate in our in-person classroom, that's a way to reach all learners and make them feel included and plugged in and capable of doing the work we're asking them. So what you'll notice here is that I've provided 4 questions, and they vary on the rate of their open-endedness versus simplicity. And you can do that as well on adding questions that have higher rigor. Adding multiple ideas or multiple questions is another way, where students that work really fast and can type fast would be able to answer them all, whereas students that need more time to respond and aren't so fast at typing, it would be acceptable to only respond to 1. So adding in that layer of differentiation is another easy way to provide that layer of engagement and safety in being able to respond as everyone else is. So thank you for those of you that dropped in a response. That is fantastic, and I appreciate that. Just to show you guys real quickly, if you're not familiar with Padlet, I just want to go over, oh yay, it took a minute for them to load. So I just wanted to go, I'm sorry, I'm losing my, okay. Well, for some reason it's not wanting to let me go home, but that's okay. I wanted to just show you some of the other opportunities and the other pieces that are in Padlet, but we can save that for another day. Padlet.com, they do offer you a freebie and a nice tool set to get started. It's super easy. I didn't attend any training. It's just really easy to use. All right, so
Angie, I see we have some questions coming up about how to create the Padlet. Is
Awesome.
your computer letting you show that, or do you want me to show that on my screen? You can talk through it.
Let me just see if there it is. I think I just was I can do that now. I just couldn't find my little letter A. That's how I could get home. So just to show you real quickly, when you sign up, this is what you'll see. They'll give you an opportunity for a quick rundown on the basics, but making a Padlet super easy. There's all these choices. The one I picked right here is a shelf. So I'll show you a preview. It has a great idea. What do we know about giraffes? So your headers would be what we know, what you want to know, what we learned. And so this would be another opportunity that you could have with students. What would be another great use for elementary? A canvas. This is a fun way you could have this collaborative conversation to have a sort of a map. But as far as how you make it, you decide which one you want, you select it, and then it gives you this toolbar on the right-hand side. Super easy. It tells you exactly what you can and can't do, and then you just start typing. So it's super fun and easy. I think if we needed more time or more experience there, I know I'd be happy to conduct a webinar on these specific tools. So thank you for those questions. Any other questions I can touch on real quickly? All right, Trello and Popplet are, I want to give a shout out to them too. I just don't use them as frequently, but they also have a nice little freebie for teachers, a little bit more stretch of what they're offering for free right now because of our circumstance. So explore those. I find Padlet to be really the most intuitive. So lots of uses there for that during your engagement, but also before and after. It's a fun way to participate.
Angie, based on your experience and seeing what's coming up for folks, what, if any, recommendations do you have in terms of how folks can help their kids be independent or use Padlet to help their kids' independence?
I would definitely use it together first and start simple. Always with everything right now is to start simple and move to the more complex. So anytime you want to implement a tool such as Padlet, you'd want to use it and kind of test the waters first before you'd use it outside of it. But Padlet, the shelf one that I showed you guys, is really simple for just having a topic. And then you just say, click the plus sign, let's see what your ideas are. And I mean, it's really simple as you experience. It's simple to try out. I would think, well, and in fact, at the school that I worked with this morning, we had second graders that were doing this. So I know that it just depends on your own situation and your learners, but I would say start slow. You don't like being overwhelmed, neither do your students. So just start slow and try it out with them first. Hope
Thank you.
That's the question. Great question though. All right, so we're going to go ahead. I'm trying to keep an eye on the time, so we have plenty of time. The next piece is a shared writing space. I will say that this is probably the one that I actually use the most when I'm actually teaching content. It's a really helpful way to, number one, make sure everyone is engaged, but it also provides, like I described with Padlet, an easy opportunity for differentiation. So I am going to ask you guys to find a link again for shared writing space. You can click the link here. Rebecca's dropping it in the chat. I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is an engagement tool that's a shared writing space. Google and SharePoint obviously have great tools in this regard. And what I have here is a shared journaling time. So we'll go ahead and participate here, and then I'll be really explicit to how it was designed. So what you're seeing is two quotes or two options here. So I'd like you guys to, I'd like you guys to, sorry. Oops. So it's fine. We won't worry about that. I'd like you guys to go ahead and take a look at the two quotes. We have number one, success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. And then we have life is a marathon, not a sprint. Pace yourself accordingly. So those are our two quotes. And here's our activity. Review the images. Which one resonates most with you and why? Well, this is a new situation. I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, we'll just hopefully that will, all right. So which resonates the most with you and why? Is it number one or number two? And your directions are to pick a box where no one is writing and tell us which quote you chose and why. So start off with the number. So here's an example. Number two, when I rush, I don't do as well. So that would be an example. So go ahead and decide which one you want to use. We'll try to only write in the boxes. This is a new situation.
Angie, I can move it around. I think it's moving with folks typing, so I'll just move it into a table at the top.
Okay, thanks. Yep. Okay, so you're picking one and explaining how it resonates with you the most. Oop, now it went away. Not sure what happened to the second quote. Well, that was a fun experience. That's not ever happened before. Thanks for helping, Rebecca. All right, so I'll stop sharing so I can really just see and not worry you guys with the scrolling. I'm just gonna kind of watch as the ideas populate. There should be plenty of space, so find somewhere where no one is writing. If you wanna respond to both, feel free to do that as well if you're finished and just waiting for others. All right, what's really fascinating about this activity is that for the most part, it's almost even between number 1 and number 2. And as I'm just glancing, it almost looks like this time we have more at number 2. That's an interesting experience. All right, so practice makes perfect. Consistency is key. Those are some great ideas for number 1. Practicing something continually. Nice ideas. Oh, someone couldn't decide. They're deciding 1 and 2 is great. That's going to be a fun response to the read as well. So for number 2, I see you can take as many laps as you need to reach each goal separately. That's a wonderful insight. No need to rush through everything. Take your time so you can make sure everything is the way you want it to be. Very nice. Awesome. These are fantastic ideas. Please continue to jot down your notes. I love to return after a session has concluded and return to all of these ideas and take my time in reading them all. So just a quick note about how this was designed, and I'll share my screen again so you guys see what I'm referring to. So a few layers of engagement here take place. One is the idea of choice. Anytime students are provided with a choice, they just tend to like it better. But there is also, when you provide a choice, there's that opportunity to layer in the ability. Now with these 2 images that I've chosen and the quotes I've chosen, they actually connect to our content, which is a separate engagement activity. But you could also level it with vocabulary or simplicity. So students that are able to read more complex ideas can respond or might choose to respond to that one, whereas they may choose to respond to the more simple one if they're having trouble reading or comprehending. So providing that leveled choice is really a helpful tool. The other piece is we have words and images, so that can reach more learners, learners that really need that visual that would inspire them, whereas folks that really want to deal with complex or maybe some, more of these poetic ideas, that could engage them as well. So just a few different layers of choices. Just wanted to be explicit there. So fantastic that I can't wait to actually spend time and read all of the ideas. I want to point to one quick thing before we move on. I jotted it at the very bottom, pardon my scrolling. Just to prevent any infringement on copyright laws, I made these images myself on ImageFlip, imgflip.com. Super easy, free, lovely device to be able to make these kinds of things, and maybe more personalized memes. It's a meme generator for your students. Also, it's fun. They love to make memes themselves, so that the more aged students might be able to do that. All right, so
I'm sorry, can you please repeat that website in order to make them?
it's at the bottom of the, maybe Rebecca can drop it in the chat. It's at the bottom of the paper that we just worked on together, the journal. So ImageFlip, imgflip.com, ImageFlip.
Thank you.
Sure. It was super easy. Great. A great way to circumvent copyright laws. All right, so great work, guys. Thank you for taking part. I see so many great ideas, so I can't wait to get back to these and look at these. But this is a content loop. So we're connecting this activity to the content we're about to cover, and that is engagement around consistency and pacing. These are 2 ways that we can also increase our engagement. And you see on our agenda, those are the final 2 of the final 2 listings there for engagement during. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of our agenda now if you're looking on our Zoom screen together. Pardon the scrolling if that makes you dizzy. But I've dropped some notes here for us to cover real quickly. So during a meeting continued, we have consistency and pacing, 2 engagement tools to use while you're in person, but we need to make sure that we are conveying those into our virtual environment as well. So I've just jotted a few quick notes that I've covered with some other teachers and some ideas that they've shared as well. So consistent protocols. We do it in the classroom. We know where the pencils are kept. We know what to do with our chairs at the end of the day. So we need to translate that into our virtual environment. One important protocol that is really helpful for establishing consistency would be your opening and closing. So students know what that feels like and do feel plugged into the entirety of the session. I know having students come in and out and not attending for the whole period is a challenge right now. So having protocols that has a natural engagement at the beginning and end of a session is a way to provide that consistency and engagement. Resource storage, I'll say it again, it's so important to make sure that there's consistency there. You'll win some points with the parents and make it really a lot more engaging for your students if they're able to learn those ways to access the resources on their own. Participation expectations is important. You know how we draw sticks in the classroom to vary the participation? Don't be afraid to do that now. We need to make sure that all participants are plugged in and that everyone is expected to participate. And also the kindness rules. Don't be afraid to cover those as well about how we're expected to communicate with one another. And then last but not least, pacing. Allowing time when there's new features being introduced. If you're going to introduce Padlet, that might be the only thing you cover in a class period. Just allow time, especially in the technological realm. We've got to allow time for new features to slowly develop. Utilizing wait time. Y'all experience that in here. It's more uncomfortable when we're in the virtual world, and I'm not sure why that is, but don't be afraid to use wait time. It's really important for your students to know that you will wait for them to get plugged in. And slowly build up to a faster pace. As you learn to use technology and as your students get more apt with it, you'll be able to go faster, because we certainly want to avoid lag time, just like in our classroom. When there's a lag in the session, they will get disengaged and it's so hard to get them back. So plan ahead and have some consistency there with what to do to avoid the lag time. Having a sidebar activity for when the computer shuts down, for example, is a great way to do that. If something malfunctions, drop a question in the chat to have them plugged in the whole time. And last but not least, avoid overload in the final minutes. The closure, as we'll cover here in just a moment, is so very important to close up that notion of safety that I've mentioned a few times, but also in valuing the time that you've shared together. So make sure that you do preserve the closure. This is an important thing in our general classroom as well. Sometimes we rush the closure and students are rushing out and we lose out on that very important opportunity to close and to tie up the important next steps or to give validation to the work that we've done. So make sure you protect that time as well. It's really, maybe it's even more important in the virtual sense. All right, so that was a mouthful. I'm going to scroll back up to the middle of this meat of our agenda here, and we're just going to pause for just a second. Let's see how we're doing on time. So we do have a moment. We have, 15 minutes. I don't want to endanger our minutes. I want to follow through with what I said about closure. So I'm going to do a quick assessment, and I'm being explicit about modeling how we should do this. I just want to check my pacing. So on the nod towards let's do pacing, can I see a thumbs up, sideways, or down? How am I doing in pacing? Do you feel lost and overwhelmed, or is it okay, or is it too slow? Now give me a little bit of feedback so I understand how you're doing at this time. All right, so some of you are a little overwhelmed, some of you are doing okay. I'm going to switch to the next page. There's so many participants. Oh, that's where no one's sharing their video, so I can't see your feedback. All right, so thanks for that feedback. If we had more time, I'd probably pause for questions, but I certainly want to be able to finish our agenda. If we have extra time, we'll have questions at the end. All right,
and
so
folks can continue to drop questions in the chat, and I'll summarize them and remind Angie about your brilliant ideas.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca, for that. All right, so last but not least in our engagement categories would be engagement after. We've covered a lot of ground on how to be engaging during, but it's not finished just when your session turns off. In fact, there's a lot of engagement, a nice new layer of engagement that you can tie in for the after piece after your session has closed. So what I've done here is create a visual for us to take a look at together, and it's there for you if you want to refer back to it. So there's 3 pieces I want to touch on. The first layer of engagement after your session will be to troubleshoot. If something malfunctioned, something went wrong, don't lose out on the opportunity to tie it back up nice and neat again. Figure out what went wrong, help whoever was having an issue. That way you've restored the engagement or the opportunity for engagement next time. So never fail to promptly troubleshoot whatever went wrong, whether it's on your end or if someone else is struggling. Sharing resources and next steps would be the next piece. What I like to do after a session, even though it's all in the agenda, just to layer over a repeated note, I guess you could say. I like to drop my next steps in an email, as well as sharing the agenda link again, just so that it is said a multiple time and that the participants have that reminder once they've logged off. So just sharing the resources, sharing the next steps, and communicating that second layer is really helpful, especially for the younger learners. I know adults need it, so I don't see why students wouldn't need it as well. If email isn't available, then perhaps in your shared Google Classroom or wherever the resources are stored. And last but not least, connecting the learning. You've seen me do this today from one idea to the next. So that's a technique we all do when we're teaching, but it's important after your session to validate the work that you've done during that session by connecting it to what's coming next. So for example, for us today, the hope is that your virtual work that we've done here inspires your planning, your offline work, or what's coming next in your work with your students. So hopefully what we're doing here translates into your real life, or at least parts of it will. So that's our natural connection. Unfortunately, I don't have another session planned with you guys right now, but perhaps in the future. But let's take a look at what it might look like in the realm of your students. And here's what I mean by connecting the learning. So online, with your students, perhaps you've taught them a new strategy in reading or mathematics, so you've worked together online there. Your offline work that you assign might be to practice that strategy within an assignment. And then they will know, because you're going to connect it, they're going to know that next time you meet together online, they're going to be responsible for utilizing that strategy on a shared task or a shared accomplishment. So that's a way we can validate what we're asking them to do by connecting it to perhaps their offline work, but also connecting it to the next session. You want them to feel like their contribution to the work is valuable and that the pieces that we are learning connects together. It's really important that we bring that habit into our virtual realm. All right, so those are a few tips on engagement after our session. I'm gonna jump back here and we'll pause for a moment to just take a deep breath and think about all of the tools that we've covered. So we're gonna pause for a opportunity in the chat. We have 2 options. Feel free to answer them both. Rebecca's gonna drop those in the chat for us. Which tool is standing out to you as the most important to use and why? And by tools, I mean all of the things that we've covered, all of these that are bulleted from before, during, and after. Any of those would be a tool. Which one stands out to you and why? Or what is the key takeaway that's resonating with you right now? So drop your ideas in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see some of your faces. And I'm so excited to hear what you're thinking about right now. Padlet, yep. Paddles are good too. I mean the rowing kind. Padlet does have a lot of great opportunities. Shared writing, especially with the older kids, it's a great one. I always love to have all of the amazing ideas, always just blow me away. It always is different than I'm expecting. So the polls, right, thinking about the younger ones. Yeah, and the polls, they can be, it can just be a box that they check, doesn't have to be complex. So younger ones can do that too. They'll probably feel so accomplished. The polls, good. Polls and Padlet, those are always loves. Daily check-in, yeah, especially right now, that emotional check-in is important. Using the images for non-readers, good. Awesome. Thinking about a bell using the sound cues. Yeah, that's fun. All right, please continue to drop these in. I'll be excited to review them all and hear all of your voices once we log off. So thank you for that, and thinking about the key takeaways, because that's really the spinoff here in just a moment when we do start talking about closing, is to think about, you know, what it was the point of us meeting today and what are you taking away? Because the hope is that you have a whole toolbox of ideas that you can continue to develop over time, and that you feel inspired and have a new outlook on what's possible. Please know that you're not alone in this boat. We're all in it together, and it is a learning curve. No one expects anyone to be experts right away. And there are so many resources that are starting to pool together, and an awesome support system for all of you amazing educators. So it's really great for you guys to think about, you know, what's resonating with you and how's it going to change your practice, which will change your life right now, right? The more our practice feels solid, the more we will feel happy in our actual life, because our life is our work, right? Our work is our life right now. It's all joined in one space, work and life. All right, so let's give a nice chunk of time just to end today on closure. This is the closure of our meeting, but it's also a time of modeling of what is important about a closure. I've already given a hint that closure is so important in the work that we do, especially virtually. We do it in the classroom, but it's really important to carry it over. So we've looked at so many engagement techniques, but a strong closure really provides that opportunity to tie things off nicely, to make sure that the session has gone as you intended, and to also ensure that it is connected to the learning. So let's just take a look. We have 3 ingredients listed right here. So I'll go through each of the 3 ingredients and talk a little bit about next steps. So recapping goals, that's obviously something that we want to do. What was our point today? So let's take a look at the goal that is listed here at the header. So gaining ideas for and experience with virtual tools to engage virtual learners. So we've looked at before, during, and after. We've experienced a video together, think and share techniques. We've talked about norms. You guys shared some great ideas for additional norms. We've compared virtual versus in-person engagement and hinted towards all the great tools you already have in your toolbox. We've participated in different types of participation involvement and done a lot of shared writing together. So I have some great notes to take away and inspire me and other educators. So that's awesome. And hopefully you've gotten a little tidbit of encouragement and ideas from your colleagues as you watched those ideas populate as well. Looked at engagement after, a very important piece. It really can help prevent a lot of headache. So thinking about engagement after and the 3 tools here that are listed. So our goals were to look at all of these tools, but also participate in. So I feel like we've really covered a lot of ground there, and I hope you are getting ready here for this next step idea. So memorializing next step is the second ingredient in a strong closure. And memorialize in the sense that they are accessible to the participants. I've already said that I like to drop them in an email to my participants that I have an ongoing relationship with. And so that would be a great example. But here today, I'm using the opportunity just to put them in our shared agenda. So the next steps that attach or connect to our goals would be that you would use this agenda and the connected tip sheet, it's there linked here for you, to guide your planning for virtual instruction. So think about, the next instructional opportunity that you have with your students. Take some tidbits away from this session and apply it to increase your engagement. We can never have enough engagement, and there's always going to be new things that pop up and things that go wrong. So take some of these tidbits and think about how you can layer on and layer on and layer on over time extra engagement. The second piece, I encourage you guys, because I know it's been so impactful for me and many of the teachers I work with, is pair up with someone and practice. Maybe it's a colleague or someone on your team, or maybe it's your sister or your mom across town that you haven't seen in several weeks. So partner with someone to jump online and practice these tools, and also to check your links. Make sure that things work before you get with your students. So those are the next steps that I encourage you to commit to doing. If I had your email, I'd probably email them to you, but we'll just leave them here in the agenda for now. Please just make a mental note of those and keep those handy in the back of your mind. last but certainly not least would be to close with the opportunity for feedback. And I just want to offer a few ideas in that realm. One would be a poll. It's so easy to close with a poll. You can do the emotional check-in again, or which piece was most helpful to you, or which piece that you not like the most. So doing a poll would be super easy, but we also have these protocols that can be done right here within Zoom as well. Super simple. These are the two that I use most often, and I'll cover them real quickly. A one-word whip, this is not new, it's been around for ages, but it's essentially a one-word response. So when you're running low on time, it's really easy to do the one-word whip. So one word that describes how you feel about today's learning, or how do you feel about social studies, or whatever it is. One word that describes something. You can change that sentence, but it's essentially one word. A commitment statement is another great way to provide that natural accountability. If students write it down and put it in for all their peers to see, that makes it a little bit more concrete. An example of a commitment statement would be, given today's learning, what is one practice you'll commit to applying to tomorrow's work? So that could be changed up in many ways, but it's essentially committing to trying something or committing to practicing. So this could be about, maybe something behavioral, or maybe committing to strategy use, or committing to a certain amount of time spent reading, or what have you. So one-word whips and commitment, that's an easy thing to always have in your back pocket as a way to close. This provides an opportunity for students to engage and share their opinion, but it also provides you very important feedback. I'll share the quick story that there was a session not too long ago at the beginning of all of this shutdown of everything. And I really felt like the session was overwhelming. The participants didn't engage very well. I felt like it really was a bomb. And so then when we did the one-word whip, it was everything extremely positive and just inspirational, and everyone was just really had been impacted by the session, but I felt like it was going the opposite direction. So it was really nice to get that feedback. They were responding facially with the stress that they were feeling, but intellectually it was a beneficial session. So do that one-word whip for the participants, but also do it for yourself, so you can understand if it's going the way that you intend. All right, so that's a mouthful, and we're running low on time, so we'll do one-word whip to close us out today. Rebecca will put that in the chat. One word that describes how you feel about today's learning. Please drop that in the chat. And I will stop sharing my screen so I can see you guys one last time. I really appreciate the time that you have spent here today with us. This was a super large group and was super fun to get to see you all. So we really, here at Generation Ready, we appreciate this opportunity to work with you on this collective journey of building up our virtual skills in this new world we find ourselves in. We really care about the work that you do with students. We care about your aptitude to feel confident and comfortable with the work that you're doing. So I certainly hope that our paths cross again and we have the opportunity to support you again in what you're doing. If you have any questions, feedback, or any needs for support moving further, please feel free to reach out to me. You have my contact, or Kelly Masleen. Her contact is also there. She is the education director for your area, so we're happy to get you plugged in. So thank you for dropping your one words in the chat. This chat will be saved, and please know I am going to review all of the ideas that you have shared today. Thank you for sharing that too, Rebecca. And I appreciate all of you so much. I hope that you take something from today and apply it to your life, to your educational setting, and be well and feel encouraged and know that you're doing amazing work for the educational community. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. We'll conclude. Feel free to stay on, continue to add your words. The contact information is there on the screen for you guys.
And also, so as we wrap up, I've added, first of all, thank you, Angie. That was phenomenal. So I also am a consultant with Generation Ready. I have the privilege to have the opportunity of learn with Angie. And Angie has taken something that has been sprung upon us that no one has expected and managed to become a leader and teacher in this area in, I don't know, I think it's 2 weeks, but it seems like 2 years. So what I've added, I'm going to paste it again because I know it's hard to scroll through the chat. I've added a link here that you can go ahead and share. I know folks were asking about a sign-in. So if you could sign out and you can share your emails with us, and we will follow up with you with resources from this session. And also, if you have any lingering questions or comments, you can include those there, and we will reach out to you directly if you would like. And as a little, so Angie had mentioned if you would like to reach out to us directly about additional support, we have our amazing education director, Kelly Maslin, who works with New York State, our amazing education director, Maria Quayle, who works with New York State and as well New York City. And then here's Angie's contact information. And then it doesn't stop here, there's more. So you folks have been incredible and supportive. We have a few additional upcoming webinars if you're interested. And so these are the three, well, we have 2 new ones, assessing and giving feedback to your virtual learners. And there's 2 opportunities for that. A virtual panel of the functions of Google Classroom, and that is on April 2nd and April 6th, featuring not only me, but Allison Gadlin, who I know many of you have the privilege of working with. And then Angie will be doing another session around practical virtual tools. So if you have colleagues who weren't able to participate and you would like to recommend this to them, just let us know and we can send them the invitation as well. So on the survey, go ahead and indicate to us if you would like direct invites to these sessions. We can send you the links because we want to send them directly so we don't get those Zoom bombers that have gone around. So we have these sessions coming up, and also so you know, I know many of you work with Allison, and it's so great for me to be here and I get to see some folks who I've worked with in the past, Yuri and Sarita, it's good to see you. We are pivoting as an organization and really redoubling our efforts around virtual learning. We've been working in schools from the first day that we could go in and support around this. So any ways that you would like support, we are all here for you. You all are doing the real work with the kiddos every day and really being very brave in this space. And we are here with you for anything that you need. Okay, and with that, so thank you for your time, everyone. If you have additional questions or would like to bring up anything additional, we can stick around for a few minutes. Otherwise, please be sure to fill out our survey and you can note down any information from here for any additional follow-up.
Thank you, everyone.